William James, the man who founded modern psychology, faced the darkest question of all. What if life has no meaning? What if God is silent? What if nothing matters? His final answer was revolutionary. You have the right to believe, even without proof. If that belief gives you strength, hope, and purpose, then it is real for you. Tonight, in part 25, the end of chapter 5, you'll hear his right to believe that saved millions from despair. How belief creates meaning when everything feels empty, and the one idea that still helps people find hope today. This is the end of chapter 5. Stay until the end. His final message will give you the courage to believe when life feels hopeless. By this stage, William James had fully developed his vision of psychology, philosophy, and practical ethics as deeply interconnected fields. His focus was on understanding human consciousness, belief, habit, emotion, and social life, with the goal of improving both personal and moral development. Page 9 of Chapter 5 examines his mature reflections on pragmatism, religious experience, moral growth, and the integration of thought and action. A central concern during this period was the nature and function of belief. James emphasized that beliefs are not only cognitive statements but also forces that shape behavior, perception, and experience. Beliefs arise from emotion, habit, and social influences, and they provide meaning, motivate action, and guide decision-making. He argued that beliefs should be evaluated based on their practical consequences. A belief is valuable if it leads to positive outcomes in life, supports moral action, or improves well-being. By studying belief scientifically and philosophically, James connected psychology with ethics, education, and practical living. Religion and spiritual experience remained vital to his work. James approached religion as a psychological phenomenon, focusing on personal and subjective experience, rather than institutional or doctrinal aspects. He analyzed religious conversions, mystical insights, and moments of profound moral or spiritual awareness. He showed that authentic religious experiences can inspire courage, ethical conduct, and personal growth. Religion, for James, is not merely about faith or doctrine, but about the transformative effects that belief and experience have on the individual's life and actions. Consciousness continued to serve as a foundation for understanding human experience. James described it as a flowing, continuous process shaped by attention, habit, emotion, and memory. Experiences of moral reflection, religious insight, or intellectual engagement are embedded within this ongoing stream. Consciousness is purposive, directed by personal goals, moral values, and practical concerns. By linking consciousness to habit, emotion, and belief, James offered a framework for understanding human life as an integrated process, showing how thought, feeling, and action are inseparable. Habit remained a core concept in his thinking. James explored how repeated actions, whether intellectual, moral, or practical, form the foundation of character and influence behavior. Developing beneficial habits requires deliberate effort, reflection, and consistent practice. Habits shape attention, guide decision-making, and support ethical and intellectual development. James's study of habit demonstrates how psychology can inform moral practice, showing that character and virtue are cultivated through repeated, mindful action. Emotion continued to be central to his work. James emphasized the inseparability of emotion, cognition, and moral judgment. Emotions shape attention, perception, and decision-making, and they play a crucial role in guiding moral and practical action. By integrating emotion with consciousness, habit, and social context, James developed a holistic understanding of human motivation and behavior. Emotional awareness, he argued, is essential for ethical judgment, personal growth, and social engagement. Social observation remained essential. James studied how culture, education, and societal expectations influence habit, belief, and moral development. He examined the effects of peer influence, authority, and social norms on thought and behavior. By understanding social dynamics, James highlighted the interplay between individual disposition, habit, and environment. Human development, he argued, is shaped by both personal and social factors, and effective education and moral guidance must account for this interaction. Pragmatism continued to unify his philosophical and psychological approach. James argued that beliefs and ideas should be evaluated by their practical consequences. A belief is meaningful if it guides action, improves life, or supports moral and personal development. Pragmatism bridges the gap between abstract thought and real-world application, ensuring that philosophical inquiry remains relevant and actionable. James applied this principle to ethics, religion, education, and psychology, demonstrating that ideas are most valuable when they produce beneficial effects in life. By the end of this stage, William James had developed a fully integrated approach to human life and thought. Consciousness, habit, emotion, belief, social context, and practical application formed a unified framework for understanding and guiding human experience. Chapter 5 illustrates his mature reflections on pragmatism, religious experience, moral development, and practical philosophy. His work demonstrates the power of integrating psychology, philosophy, and practical ethics to create a comprehensive model for meaningful, ethical, and purposeful living. By the time William James reached the later stages of his career, he had fully developed a vision of human experience that integrated psychology, philosophy, religion, and practical ethics. His work emphasized the continuous flow of consciousness, the formative power of habit, the influence of emotion, and the practical consequences of belief. Chapter 5 completes his mature reflections, demonstrating how his ideas cohere into a unified framework for understanding and guiding human life. Belief remained central to his philosophy. James emphasized that beliefs are not abstract statements but forces that shape perception, decision-making, and action. People adopt beliefs not only through rational reasoning but also through emotion, habit, and social influence. Beliefs provide meaning, guide behavior, and help individuals navigate uncertainty. James argued that the value of belief should be judged by its practical consequences. A belief is meaningful if it helps a person act effectively, develop morally, or improve their well-being. This principle of pragmatism underlies his work across psychology, philosophy, religion, and ethics. Religion and spiritual experience continued to be a focus. James studied religious conversions, mystical experiences, and moments of profound insight, emphasizing their psychological and practical effects. He demonstrated that authentic religious experience can inspire courage, ethical action, and personal growth. For James, religion was not about adhering to doctrine or institutions, but about the transformative power of spiritual experience in the life of the individual. It could guide attention, shape habit, and strengthen moral resolve. Consciousness remained at the heart of his framework. James described it as a flowing stream shaped by attention, habit, memory, and emotion. Experiences of insight, reflection, or moral decision-making are all embedded in this continuous flow. Consciousness is purposive, directed by personal goals, ethical considerations, and practical concerns. By examining consciousness in relation to belief, habit, emotion, and social context, James provided a comprehensive framework for understanding human life as an interconnected process of thought, feeling, and action. Habit remained a key principle. James emphasized that repeated behaviors, whether intellectual, moral, or practical, shape character and guide life outcomes. Conscious effort and practice are necessary to develop beneficial habits. Good habits structure attention, guide decision-making, and reinforce ethical behavior. Habit bridges psychology and ethics, showing that personal development is achieved through repeated, intentional action. James demonstrated that moral and intellectual growth is grounded in practice as much as in reflection. Emotion continued to be central. James highlighted the integration of emotion, cognition, and moral judgment. Emotions guide attention, shape perception, and motivate action. They are inseparable from ethical and practical decision-making. By combining insights from emotion, consciousness, habit, and belief, James developed a holistic understanding of human motivation. Emotional life directs attention toward meaningful goals, supports moral growth, and facilitates practical engagement with the world. Social observation remained essential. James examined the effects of culture, education, and social norms on belief, habit, and ethical development. Peer influence, authority, and social expectations shape human thought and action. By considering social context, James emphasized that personal growth and moral development occur within a broader social framework. Education, ethical guidance, and psychological insight are most effective when they account for social and communal influences on behavior. Pragmatism served as a unifying principle. James stressed that ideas and beliefs are valuable insofar as they produce practical results in human life. A belief is meaningful if it guides action, improves well-being, or fosters moral and personal growth. Pragmatism connects theory to practice, ensuring that philosophical inquiry and psychological insight are not abstract exercises, but tools for living effectively. James applied this principle across religion, ethics, education, and psychology, demonstrating its broad applicability. By the end of Chapter 5, William James had achieved a fully integrated understanding of human life. Consciousness, habit, emotion, belief, social observation, and practical application formed a coherent framework for moral, intellectual, and personal development. Chapter 5 highlights his mature reflections on pragmatism, religious experience, moral growth, and ethical guidance. His work demonstrates the integration of psychology, philosophy, and practical ethics into a holistic vision of life. James's ideas remain influential because they offer a model for understanding human thought, behavior, and moral responsibility in a way that is both rigorous and profoundly practical. William James left us a complete guide to a meaningful life, but his most shocking experiments were still hidden. In Chapter 6, starting tomorrow, you'll discover the forbidden drug experiments that proved God is real, the secret crisis that almost ended his reputation, and the one idea that made Einstein call him America's greatest mind. Chapter 6, Part 26 drops tomorrow, 8 p.m. sharp. Subscribe plus bell on. The wildest chapter is coming.